Hello and welcome to the Candidates 2022. My name is Funke Treasure and this is the Pundits Show. Today we're taking a look at the People's Redemption Party, PRP, and their candidates, Mr. Abdul Lateef Kola Abiola and Haro Zego. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll be discussing their party, campaign, and chances ahead of their sit-down with Kadria Ahmed. Here with me on the pundits are Ibrahim Modibo, a public affairs analyst.
Good evening, Nigeria. Good evening, viewers.
Gbolahan Olojede, a public affairs analyst as well.
Yeah, good evening. Nice to be here.
And my colleague, Ikechukwu Amechi, publisher of The Niche.
My pleasure.
The Niche. You're welcome. So today we're looking at the candidates for the presidency in Nigeria. We have 6 candidates we're looking at on the show today. But one of them is the center of attraction today, and that's Kola Abiola of the People's Redemption Party. We want to see what are the strengths of this party and the candidates, what are the weaknesses, what are the prospects of that party. What questions should we expect as he sits down with Kadria Ahmed on the candidates? These are many more. I'm going to ask the first question, which is about the strengths of the party. You'll recall that the People's Redemption Party was originally set up by Aminu Kano, and we'll remember the stalwart that was quite popular back then, that's Alhaji Abubakar Rimi. You also agree with me that this was one of the Fantastic Five, let me say that, the popular 5 back in time in the history of this nation in terms of big political parties. But let me go to Ikechukwu Amechi now and ask, let's talk about the party first. People's Redemption Party, what are the strengths of this party in the run-up to the presidential election?
Well, like you said, in this election cycle, PRP is the oldest political party because it was there in the Second Republic, founded by late Malam Aminu Kano. May his soul rest in peace. Talakawa politics. It ought to be the party of the masses, of the people. And of course, Alhaji Aminu Kano did so much with PRP. If you remember, in 1979, PRP won Kano, Abubakar Rimi, and then Kaduna State, Balarabe Musa, before Balarabe Musa was impeached. And of course, MPN took over. So it has history. But if you ask me whether PRP has any traction in this election cycle, I would say I don't see much traction. Because apart from the fact that, yes, the legacy of Aminu Kano, but that legacy, if you ask me, is no longer there. And I don't see a Kola Abiola having the same aura, having the same personality, having the same pedigree with Malam Aminu Kano to lift up the political party. So if you ask me the chances of PRP in this election, I don't see much.
All right, then. You've talked about traction. You've talked about whether Kola Abiola can lift the party to where it should be, to properly contend for the biggest office, the highest office in Nigeria. Let me come to you, Ibrahim Modibo. What do you think has happened to PRP over the years? And do you think they're properly positioned for this election in a few days?
Well, thank you, Funke, for inviting me to this program to discuss about the chances and also the party, the PRP. If you could recall, as far back as 1978, the PRP came on board under Malam Aminu Kano, a very credible and intellect, and also a man of substance and character. He was able to lift up the party from the grassroots or from the pit to the peak. Under the PRP, the masses, especially within the context of the North, were able to look at a party that represents them, a party that has philosophies, that have thoughts, and also that thinks about them in terms of propelling will of progress, especially developmental structures, and also seeing to meeting the needs and yearnings and aspirations of the common man. Now, if you look at the PRP as it is today under Chief M.K. Abiola's son, I think he has been able to come in to finish the undone work of his father. I thought he would have gone to SDP, but also the PRP and the SDP, they are all social democratic parties, socialist in nature. Under multiculturalism and globalization that we have at the moment, we have to look at the issues. Are the press very fair to PRP? If you ask me, I would say no. Because severally, as journalists, as media people, we tend to look at only the big four. The APC, the PDP, Labour Party, and then the NNPP. I think we have not been doing justice to some of these parties.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there and come to Abiola Haro. Abiola Haro, somehow Ibrahim has managed to pulling the candidate himself, the presidential candidates of PRP. But you're going to now talk about the party and the strength. We'll start from you, the strength of the candidate and the party as well.
I think essentially the strength of this of the party rides on the back of the age-old Aminu Kano, the late Aminu Kano. And in a season of multidimensional poverty, it's not impossible that people are looking for a savior and might think that, oh, maybe PRP presents that platform for them if it reminds them of the late Aminu Kano. But the question is, the generation that adored Aminu Kano, what is the percentage of the voters that are still left in that space today? And what has also happened to that followership in view of the fact that if you take his base, which was Kano then, and you ask yourself, who dominates Kano politics today? It will either be Kwankwanso or the current governor and some other interest. Will this party still be able to take a bite, even from Kano, not to talk of what the volume of work it will have to do to reach out to every nook and cranny of Nigeria is a daunting task. The socialist leaning is also not something that will help that much. We're in a season where socialism in itself is heavily challenged across the world. So presenting yourself as a socialist is neither here nor there.
There's something about it, right?
When you now you drill down home and you look at the elements of socialism, we have welfareism in our system, and you talk of, say, subsidy, and you see the kind of crime or how dirty the implementation of welfareism in our society has become. It's not something attractive. Even when you take the ministry that is relevant to it, there are a lot of challenges with how we have dispensed with issues of welfareism in this country. Few people will normally step in there, hijack it, and they are the beneficiaries. And the real people at the base are not getting much of this so-called welfareism. So it's a major issue for a party like PRP. How does it sell that to the public?
Right. How does it sell that to the public? Let's go to the person of the candidate, the presidential candidate of the PRP. What do you think is his biggest strengths?
His father's name.
His father's name. Amechi talked about, or was it Ibrahim now, talked about the legacy of his father. Don't you think that perhaps that shoe is a little too big for him?
I agree with you. I think it's a little too big. I think there is a lot more work for him to build his own individualism and sell his individual person. When somebody hears Kola Abiola, what flashes in their mind is not exactly what Kola Abiola is or what he has done. It's what his father was and what he did.
Right.
So it's more or less like walking in the shadows of the father. So he needs to still carve out a little bit more niche for himself.
And talking about the niche, let's come to the niche man. What do you think is Kola Abiola's biggest strength as a presidential candidate in that and using the platform of that party?
Funke, I will answer that question. But let me address a little bit what
Ibrahim Modibo said.
Modibo said about the media not being fair. I don't think it is. I don't think it is so. It is not the responsibility of the media to project the political parties. And I'm going to say this, judging from what has happened with the Labour Party. Before Peter Obi went to the Labour Party, nobody knew about the Labour Party. No. So it is the quality of the candidate that propels or that propelled Labour Party to where it is today. So if Kola Abiola had come with the same strength, perhaps PRP would also be considered, we should be talking about 5 political parties. But he hasn't done that. Then coming to your question, his greatest asset going into this election is his father's name. He has name recognition. Of course, anybody who hears about Kola Abiola will say, yes, I know who Kola Abiola is. The flip side of that argument is that it is not his name, it is his father's name. And there is an extent to which your father's name will, particularly in this side of the world, you know, there are places where a man finishes well, is so revered, the son or the daughter simply steps into the shoe and goes on from there. Not here. If you remember, as popular as Chief Obafemi Awolowo is,
was at that time.
No, I mean, in terms of popularity, even in death, he's still popular.
That's true.
As popular as he still remains, at least in the Southwest, the daughter, Dosumu, could not even win the governorship this, and even when she was wearing the father's trademark cap. When Funsho Williams was killed and the whole sentiment was there, I remember even the wife attempted to run.
Right.
But it didn't get any traction. So we are not a country where people vote for you because of what your father or your mother achieved.
Right.
They go for who you are. And I don't think, Kola, like I said earlier, I don't think, despite the name recognition, I don't think he has done enough politically to also gain the kind of traction that his father, MK Abiola, had in his days.
With your response, you've taken us to the second part of this round of questioning, which is about the weaknesses of the candidates and the party. We've talked about Kola Abiola's the legacy of his father as being a strength for him. But nowadays, people are asking, who is Kola Abiola? Is he an entrepreneur? Is he a politician? What has he done on the platform of that party that has signposted him, literally, to the generality of Nigerians, such that people or Nigerians should take him seriously for these coming elections? I'll come to you first, Ibrahim Modibo.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly respond to my colleague here about the content and context of the media. If you look at the media, by virtue of the social responsibility theory of the Nigerian media, it presupposes that the media should be a watchdog of society and also should be able to give balance, in terms of reportage of events. You should be fair And also, you should reflect the views and aspirations of all the political parties. But what we see now is the media concentrating itself on just few people. And it's very unfair.
But isn't it what the party gives the media, that the media will work on?
You see,
isn't it that when you have events, you ask the media and the media
are you saying
covers?
Are you saying that PRP doesn't have anything, it doesn't go? You see, Kola Abiola and his team, I think there is a kind of strategic thinking based on silence modus operandi, where it has been going to look and crying silently to campaign. I'm not a member of PRP, but I strongly believe for him to pick up the gauntlet, to say that, look, I want to contest for the presidency under the PRP. Kola Abiola knows he is under no illusion as to the fact of the enormity that is consistent within the context of going in for the presidency under the banner of PRP.
Okay, let me stop you there. You've made your point. Ibrahim, you've made your point. Let me come to Gbolahan quickly. Is PRP a grassroots party? And isn't this a weakness already, that it doesn't seem that the party, and even the flag bearer of the party at the presidential election level, is not as popular as you would think a presidential candidate should be?
I don't see it as a grassroots party. To become a grassroots party involves a lot of work. You see, when people talk about structure in codes, it presupposes that parties should even start from the grassroots and build up. So there are representations at state, at local government, at ward levels. Does this party have such? Does he have a councillor at all? And is he positioned to be able to win a councillorship in any, or a local government chairmanship in any state in Nigeria? Those are some of the things that tells about how much of a grassroots party is PRP, and I don't think it's so much. It used to be the historical PRP.
I mean, you talked about the Talakawas,
yes,
right?
It used to be. Can he wake it up? There are still 2 months.
Can he wake it up? I'd like to add to that. Does the presidential candidate of the PRP possess, because we've talked about his father's legacy, the network, the clout, the influence, the structure that his father had? I think those will constitute the weaknesses of the candidates in using his father's legacy as a yardstick for his running for this particular presidency, or the highest office in the land. Finally, my brethren, let us talk about what to expect from Kadria. We have barely a few minutes left to go, but what do you think Kadria should be asking the PRP as a party and the presidential candidate as well as his running mates quickly?
Well, I think Kadria should drill Kola Abiola on why, in the first place, he wants to be the president of Nigeria.
Why, in the first place, does he want to be the president of Nigeria?
Yes.
Let me come to Ibrahim Modibo. Yes. What do you think Kadria should be asking him?
Kadria should ask Mr. Abiola the policies and programs of PRP that has been selling to Nigerians. For him to take up the gauntlet and say, look, I want to be president of Nigeria. He knows for sure that as it is today, it is lamentable that this country is under the full weight of spiraling indiscipline, crass impunity, and also monumental level of corruption.
Right.
And therefore, central, how does he intend to look at the issues of security, the issues of corruption, the issue of social infrastructure, and the issue of the dwindling fortunes of the Naira vis-a-vis?
Right. Why does he want to run for Nigeria's presidency? And you've talked about policy as well. What does he want to do about the currency and all of that? Yeah. Let me come to you, Gbolahan. What do you think Kadria should be asking Kola Abiola and the PRP?
I think it would be nice to pick his brains a little bit. He's a smart man. So all these Nigerian problems are there, what I call the critical matters of state, whether it is subsidy, it is education, it is healthcare. What are his thoughts on those critical matters of state? And we can begin to even have ideas that may form a basis for some other candidate, whoever may win. If it is about service to Nigeria, ideas should not be private. It should be made open. So that if you have a brighter idea and I win, then I can use your idea.
Fantastic. Finally, before we go, perhaps I should let the analysts also give their own words, your final words, as we move on to the elections in a few days.
I would say, you know, when we had our lecture on September 8th, I did say that the 2023 elections will be very fundamental. They will be consequential. Nigerians should appreciate the fact that if we lose it in 2023, it will take a whole lot of doing, a whole lot of time, a whole lot of action for us to get back Nigeria. A lot of things will depend on the outcome of 2023 elections, and we should better take it serious.
Okay, I'm told we need to wrap up now, and so that's our time on the Pundit Show today. I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, Ibrahim Modibo, Ikechukwu Amechi, and Gbolahan Oloyede. You're still watching the candidates, don't go anywhere, because just after the break, Mr. Abdul Latif, Kola Abiola, and Haro Zego will be sitting with Kadria Ahmed for a deeper conversation. You can send in your questions using the hashtag on your screen. I'm Anike Adefunke Treasure.
University of Ibadan, alma mater to great thespians, novelists, and politicians of the great nation of Nigeria. The University of Ibadan is located in Oyo State, southwest Nigeria. It was founded in 1948 and was one of many colleges within the University of London. Becoming an independent university in 1962, the University of Ibadan is the oldest degree-awarding institution in Nigeria. The University of Ibadan has contributed to the political, industrial, economic, and cultural development of Nigeria. Among this notable group are Nobel Prize winner Wole Soyinka, Chinua Achebe, a novelist and author of Things Fall Apart, Abdul Ganiyu Abdul Razak, a lawyer and former president of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and so many more. Bayelsa is an oil-producing state in the south-south region of Nigeria. It was created in 1996 by the then military administration. Bayelsa has also produced prominent people such as Ben Murray Bruce, a businessman and senator, Dakore Egbusin Akonde, a Nigerian actress. She is an ambassador for Amnesty International, Timi Dakolo, musician and businessman, and so many more. Recently, Bayelsa has been seriously affected by the flooding situation that has plagued Nigeria. This has seen many lose their lives, properties, and businesses. The University of Abuja, the prestigious University of Abuja, nestled in the Federal Capital Territory in the north-central part of Nigeria, was established in 1988 but officially started running in 1990. It was set up as a dual-mode university with the mandate to run conventional and distance learning programs. The university offers diploma, undergraduate and postgraduate degree programs. Popular persons who have graduated from this institution are Kanayo O. Kanayo, actor, filmmaker and lawyer. Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, former Deputy General of NAPTIP. Muhammadu Bako III, a first-class Emir of New Karshi in Nasarawa, and many more. The University of Port Harcourt. The University of Port Harcourt is located in Chuba, in Rivers State, in the south-south geopolitical zone of Nigeria. It was established in 1975 but was given university status in 1977. The University of Port Harcourt was ranked the 6th in Africa and the 1st in Nigeria by Times Higher Education in 2015. This university has graduated several notable Nigerians who are spread across several industries. Some of these people are Rita Dominic, actress; Alex Oti, former managing director of Diamond Bank; and Rotimi Amechi, a former governor of Rivers State. As it continues to run, it has promised to continue churning out great students year in and year out. Coal City University, Enugu. Named after the state's slogan, Coal City University is a not-for-profit private university nestled in Enugu State, in the southeastern geopolitical zone of Nigeria. Established in 2016 with 10 faculties to its name, Coal City University currently has over 800 students. The university prides itself on offering an excellent learning experience for students, informed by up-to-date research and facilitated by a high-quality learning environment with multimedia classrooms, ultra-modern laboratories, and a modern library. Coal City University Enugu, though young, organizes an annual essay contest for secondary school students in an effort to increase awareness of current global issues among the young population. The University of Maiduguri, popularly known as UNIMAID, a university located in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State, nestled in the northeastern part of Nigeria, created in 1975 by the federal government of Nigeria. UNIMAID enrolls about 25,000 students across all programs. This prestigious university has seen notable persons such as Bala Mohammed, a renowned minister and senator; Yemisi Akinbobola, a renowned journalist; Ahmed Lawan, the president of the Nigerian Senate, and so many other notable names. Bayero University, Kano, initially called Ahmadu Bello College, this citadel of education was renamed Bayero University, Kano. It was established in 1960 by the Northern Nigeria Ministry of Education. It is located in Kano State in northwestern Nigeria. Known for their great research work, Bayero University Kano research centers include the Center for Advanced Medical Research, the Center for Infectious Diseases, the African Center for Excellence in Population Health and Policy, the Center for Gender Studies, the Center for Dryland Agriculture, the Center for Biotechnology Research, the Center for Renewable Energy, and so much more. Notable alumni of the university include Ahmed Adamu, petroleum economist and lecturer; Moses Ochonu, historian and author, Ahmad Sani Yerima of Zamfara State, and so many more. Daria Media, in association with Cabal Entertainment, presents The Candidates, a presidential town hall meeting series where the presidential candidates of the 6 leading political parties tell us about their plans for the country. Join Kadaria Ahmed as she leads us into the world of these candidates from the 17th to the 23rd of November 2022. This very important program will be streamed on FRCN, Radio Now, DSTV, NTA, Facebook, YouTube, and more. This is a town hall meeting you shouldn't miss. Tune in. Let's hear from the candidates. Kadaira Ahmed is a leading Nigerian journalist and media entrepreneur. She sits on the Nigerian Board of Trustees in the International Press Institute and has been recognized as one of the 5 most influential people in Nigeria's media landscape. Kadaira is a recipient of grants in support of her work in accountability journalism from leading donor agencies, including the Ford Foundation, OSIWA, PLAC, and the MacArthur Foundation. She is the executive director of Daria Media, a company whose focus is public service journalism. She is also the managing director of Radio Now 95.3 FM, a radio station broadcasting out of Lagos. Radio Now exists to provide factual, unbiased, and Nigeria-focused media products that empower citizens to hold power accountable, build social consciousness, and promote nation building. Kadaira's passion for public service journalism is driven by a creed to confront inequality, injustice, and the pitfalls of identity politics. As a result, she has created, produced, and anchored programs through which she has set the agenda for national conversations on significant issues and, at times, influenced policy. She has written extensively and has been published in national and international newspapers, including the Daily Trust, The Guardian, Premium Times, and the Financial Times of London. She is a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors and the Nigerian Institute of Directors. She started her career at the BBC in London. Kadaira has a master's in television from Goldsmiths, University of London, and a bachelor's degree from Bayero University, Kano. She is a Chevening scholar.
Good evening and welcome to the 5th in a series of town halls that bring the major contenders for Nigeria's presidency face to face with the electorate that will decide who gets the top job. Again, I am Kadria Ahmed, your anchor this evening, and we are here today with the candidates of the People's Redemption Party, the PRP. Mr. Abiola and Mr. Zego, thank you so much for saying yes to our invitation to join us on the candidates. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Just a few things to note as we begin this conversation. In addition to people in the room who will be asking questions of the candidates, we have 6 remote locations across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones. And over the course of the next 2 hours, we will hear from all of them. We have also collated questions sent to us via email and our social media platforms, and we'll try and get answers to as many of those questions as possible from our candidates. It's important that people asking questions state their names clearly and be mindful of time, so we ensure that we get as many people's questions as possible. We want many, many people to be part of this important conversation. Now, let me start, Mr. Abiola. Although you are sort of, for the first time, trying to sort of contest, for the highest position in the land, we cannot say of you that you do not understand Nigeria's political terrain because of who your father was. So maybe the first thing you have to do is tell Nigerians why you and your running mate deserve to become president in 2023.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, yes, I'm not importantly, I have been in politics since 1979. Maybe out of secondary school. I traveled Nigeria under the front NPM. I was also a polling agent.
I'm going to ask you to pause a little. I understand we have a slight technical problem with your mic. We need to fix it. Somebody forgot to put it on.
Daria Media, in association with Cabal Entertainment, presents The Candidates, a presidential town hall meeting series where the presidential candidates of the 6 leading political parties tell us about their plans for the country. Join Kadaria Ahmed as she leads us into the world of these candidates from the 17th to the 23rd of November 2022. This very important program will be streamed on FRCN, Radio Now, DSTV, NTA, Facebook, YouTube, and more. This is a town hall meeting you shouldn't miss. Tune in. Let's hear from the candidates.
Apologies for that short break.
Yeah.
You were telling us, Mr. Abiola, about why, in your view, Nigerians should line up in February 2023
Yes, thank you.
and vote for you as president and your vice as well.
Thank you. Like I said earlier on, in 1979, I roamed and traveled Nigeria under NPN. I was a polling agent for my late mother, who ran for Senate, Abuja North Local Government. Fast forward to 1992, 1993, under SDP, I ran, orchestrated, strategized, executed the MKO for president campaign. I ran, I'm sure a lot of us still remember all those jingles. MKO is our man. That's a lot of what I did back then at a very tender age. I have not been active subsequently, but I have nonetheless been studying it. And I've always believed that to change the political landscape in Nigeria, you'll have to, like Haro, who says I should say redeem the electoral process, I believe in positively disrupting the process. And I believe I have what it takes to disrupt that process or redeem that process. I also believe I have what it takes to, I understand it enough to believe I can make that change for better. But more importantly, I believe I have the capability, the understanding of politics to know that it will require not a PDAPC to change Nigeria. I believe it requires a new party to do that, and that's why I'm in PRP.
Okay.
Together with Haro, we believe we can execute this.
But you know, even though we sometimes forget it, it's not just the APC and the PDP that are contesting for office. There are a total of 18 parties.
Right.
And each one of them could sit here and say exactly what you said, which is, it's not APC, it's not PDP, you require something new, and we are the new. I'd like you to give us the substance of what it is that differentiates you from the other 17, if we take you out.
Right.
17 parties and their candidates that are saying we deserve the top job in 2023. And please, Mr. Zego, feel free to jump in, you know?
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, I think PDP is the oldest party to date in this country. It's a 50-year-old party. It's a party that... PRP, sorry.
Right,
PRP is the oldest party in Nigeria to date. And because of that, we have an ideology that we have maintained over the years. And that we also we're a party today that has fielded 711 candidates, 23 governors. We have 33 senators. We have about 400 House of Rep members running, and House of Assembly members across the 36 plus 1 state. So we have the representation.
Yeah. I want to quote a little bit.
Haro is the full party man, so he's passionate about this, so he will probably give you the figures a lot better.
Yeah, I wanted to quote directly from your manifesto because you call yourselves a people-oriented mass party. Right. And I was, wondering what that means and how does it translate into the philosophy that underlines your policies and your, if you like, contract with Nigeria should you become president and vice president?
Okay, thank you very much. If you recall, or anybody has history, knows about the history of the PRP, it started from the NCNC in 1945 and it morphed to the NEPA. And then from there...
Can I, sorry, interrupt?
From there,
can people in this hall hear them at all? I think people are struggling, so while you keep talking, I will be asking my technical people to please try and resolve that. I can hear you, but I could tell that people were struggling. And it's important that they hear you as well, and not just the people at home. So please carry on, and I'm so sorry I interrupted.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to say was if you know the history of the PRP, it started with from the NCNC, then to NEPA in 1945, then 46. Then from there, it became NEPU. From NEPU in 1950, the same party morphed into PRP in 1978. Now, what was that? The real genesis of the party was a party that that saw that there were the colonial masters were trying to divide the masses, especially using the aristocrats and through the feudal system. And this was a party that was brought about from a need for the masses to have a voice. And that's what the party stands for. It still stands for that. It stands with the masses. And it showed that example when we were in 1979 to 83. We held government in old Kaduna State and Kano State. So when we say we're a mass party, we mean we're the party for the masses, for the people, for the common Nigerian, the ordinary Nigerian, not for the political class.
And that longevity, when you sort of talk about it, sounds really exciting, except historically you have never formed a national government in that sense of the word. So what makes you think Nigeria is now ripe for a party with the sort of orientation that you have? If, for 50 years you've tried and failed to convince Nigerians to give you a chance.
Well, what has happened over the past is that we have been a very progressive party over the years, number one. Number two, over time, we've been stereotyped to be a northern Muslim party. But today, this so-called northern Muslim party is fielding a Kola Abiola from the southwest as its presidential candidate, and Haro from Kaduna Christian.
A northern Christian. Right.
So we're actually a national party. Not just that, like I said earlier on, we're fielding 711 candidates across Nigeria. We're truly a national party. Also, it's the only party in existence today that it only costs you 100 naira to register. It's the only party today that you can buy your forms for next to nothing. I think 250,000 for gubernatorial candidate or something. State assembly ticket. And you can run tomorrow. It's the only party that is that we don't have any overhangs or godfathers that allow for the youth of Nigeria today to participate freely and do the homework. So that endears us to a lot of people who really want to have a voice, who think it's about time to make a change, especially since the older leadership has failed. Let them try something new, and we're the first ones.
Okay, so let's see if we can dive in and sort of see if we can sort of be a little bit more granular with the things that you say you want to do. Again, spending a little bit of time looking at your manifesto, you talk about the fact that is underpinned by 5 basic principles. The ones that stood out for me is state control of the economy, which essentially seems to be socialism, and correct me if I'm wrong, and total liberation from imperialism. How does sort of private sector, you know, fit into this, you know, ethos or this principle that you've described as state control of certain things and the control from imperialism? And I'm asking this especially because you have a lot of, in fact, most of your career has been private sector led.
Both of us.
It? Both of you, exactly. Yeah. So I'm trying to understand, you know, how these two things would work in a government run by you.
Well, I think, let me start. Okay, go ahead.
Let me, before you answer the question, it's meant to be state control of the commanding heights of the
That's what I'm going to say.
So,
commanding
heights
of the economy. What does that mean?
Now,
what are the commanding heights of the economy?
What it means is that we are going to run a market-driven economy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the government totally hands off. It means that at the appropriate time or when the need arises, the government can actually step in and take its role as a last arbiter.
What happens now? I mean, how is it different?
Right now, it's very public sector driven. And it's not just public sector driven, it's driven to cater for just a niche. It's never been an equal opportunity player. For us, we're looking as the name says, People Redemption Party. We are running an all-inclusive government. Every citizen must feel that they are part of their government. And because of that, our policies are geared towards having a totally inclusive government, right down to the administration of our governance. And that I will explain at some point in this discussion.
I'm interested in us sort of drilling down to the granular. So you've sort of explained that you feel this particular, the way government runs in Nigeria now is only for the benefit of a handful of people, and the sort of level of control is in. I would like to know, what are the things you will control? Good. What are the things that you're ceding to the private sector? And how will you assert oversight if you are intending to assert oversight?
I think what we're saying when we say commanding heights of the economy, we're talking of something close to resource control, whereby the state, what is produced in the state, to a large extent, the state has control over it. That's what it basically means, too, in addition to what he has said. So what we're talking about is a government which has control of the resources found in its state.
So some sort of restructuring, because, you know, that is a conversation that keeps going, and devolution, and it means different things to different people. So one of the things it means to you is essentially people controlling their resources. So that's one of them. What else?
Another thing is the fact that we would have policies, execute policies that actually go down to the bottom. Very simple example is the issue of housing. We would encourage housing development. We would encourage the Federal Mortgage Bank, for example, to be a market-driven entity, but the interest rates could be subsidized by government to encourage. But that way, but also you have to have your pensions in. You can use your pensions as collateral to get facilities. That way you don't erode the value of your pensions, considering the inflationary factor and the effects. But on the interest rate side of things, to stimulate growth, jobs, and the industry as a whole, if we have an interest rate of 21%, for example, we want a single-digit interest rate, we as government will step in and subsidize that to stimulate that growth, just to get a lot more participation from the bottom. You see, the problem is that many of us, we have an informal sector that is 60% of our economy. 84% of our employment is in that economy. They have been able to survive without being within the formal sector. We are trying to make sure that the fair ownership and can be patriotic enough to be involved in government. And the only way we can do that is to get them involved and show good faith.
And I hear you, and we will soon have to sort of go to the audience and take questions, but I want to just wrap up on this first. I mean, I hear you talking about enabling cheap money, for example, for people, for housing, maybe even SMEs and all of that. But what we find with our economy is that banks do not necessarily set out to charge interest rates of 21%. You talked about the macroeconomic, some of the fiscal policies. You have a central bank, for example, that is supposed to regulate some of these things. And I'm not quite hearing from you what are the things that you're going to do that would drive the sort of policies that would mean banks can comfortably borrow and borrow at a rate that is affordable to everybody. Because as I understand it, even as we talk now, banks themselves are struggling. And that might account for why their lending is also exorbitant, because they themselves are not necessarily completely liquid. And if you look at some of the policies that have happened over the last couple of years, we don't talk about it, but banks are in trouble in Nigeria.
Well, it's a structural problem. It's an economic structural problem. You have a system that is trying to control the inflow and outflow of FX. You have a system that is trying to peg your FX. You're trying to have a system that is import-driven as opposed to export-driven. So the imbalances you cannot manage. You have to go for a market-oriented, and that's why I said you have to have a market-oriented policy to create liquidity. It's the liquidity that is created that breaks down and solves a lot of that problem. But we're managing, that's why I said it's more public sector. We're managing the effects, oil, crude.
How?
We're managing, we're pegged, it's pegged at for...
Are you going to merge exchange rates, for example, and go
It will be market-driven to a point.
Okay.
Yes, definitely to a point.
So you float the Naira completely?
No, we're not going to float the Naira. No, that's irresponsible. But we are going to create a means to create an inflow, liquidity in the system. Once there's liquidity in the system, the economics will adjust itself. We would create, looking at the inflationary factors.
I'm talking about FDI here?
FDI. You have a vibrant capital market.
Okay.
And all that will bring in the cash and liquidity required. Sorry?
Export, any ideas?
You will encourage export. You will have import substitution. You will make sure that you have true value for your value chain. Crude, for example.
Okay.
Every barrel must be accounted for. Okay. Every dollar must be accounted for.
I have to be careful not to then turn this into an interview. It's town hall. I said I have to be careful not to turn it into an interview. It's a town hall. I'm enjoying talking to you, but I think I need to allow the audience to now come in with their questions, because that's really why we're here, so they can interact with you. There are two people, their hands are up, the lady in white and then the gentleman in a sort of yellowish Ankara. Please don't forget to tell us your name. And if a question has been asked, please don't ask it again. And don't give us any context or preference. Just go straight to your question, please. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Edgar. Mr. Abiola, my question. Your platform is PRP.
Right.
So, and you talked about the history of PRP. PRP is basically a socialist vehicle from its history. And now you're talking about market-driven policies. Right. Now, how do you marry the two? Seeing that your candidacy is issue-based. So how do you marry that seeming contradiction? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We will take maybe another one and then come back to you. So please just take notes. Otherwise, it will take too long.
Yeah, I greet my potential president and his vice. Just this simple question. Mr. Abiola, you don't sound believable to me. You know why?
Sorry?
You don't sound believable to me.
You don't sound believable.
Good. Because you were born, raised by possibly one of the richest men ever in Africa. How can you convince me that you espouse the ideology of PRP? PRP is simply Talakawa. I imagine if Aminu Kano were to be around today, would he possibly have chosen you that was born, raised in affluence, to be their candidate? So it sounds incongruous. I can't marry them together. Thank you. I can't marry them. Thank you.
Thank you.
In many ways, they're kind of related, the two questions, aren't
Yeah.
they? So the history of PRP, socialist oriented, you're now talking market economy.
Right.
And the fact that your own background is pretty affluent, and whether you can be expected to empathize and represent the interest of the have-nots.
Thank you. I'll take the last one first. That's the easier one for me.
Okay.
I introduced myself once as somebody who grew up and started from very humble beginnings. That is English from coming from a very, very bottom background. I've never forgotten that. I grew up when I was born. I always joke with Haro that I was the houseboy in the house. We didn't have any cooks or anything like that. Yes, alhamdulillah, over time, wealth came. But even when it came, it took me forever to even know it came. And I still hold on to that till today. When I say I'm from very humble beginnings, I really mean that. There's no contradiction in that at all.
So you and your younger ones, different lifestyles. Some
maybe the
born
younger
when there
ones, but
was
the
money.
first set of us definitely went through the mill,
Right.
for sure. I was born to students in England, came here, my father was
Students
a
in
worker.
England doesn't sound like
scholarship.
Talakawa.
Scholarship.
The fact that they are already in England,
No,
I
no, no.
mean.
My parents went there as students on
Right.
scholarship. My father came from very, 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 very humble beginnings. I grew up in that. It took a while. They came back to Nigeria. They made good of themselves. And throughout that period, I remember going to staff school. I have a history, like so many of us. He has a history of growing up in the barracks. His father, ex-military. We've committed lives to this country. And there's nothing contradictory in that at all. We don't forget where we started from. I went to staff school. My mother was a teacher in the Yaba College of Tech. I'd have to walk from University of Lagos to Yaba Tech, and so on and so forth. So if you check the backgrounds, there's no contradiction there at all. And for the same reasons, it only goes to show why I'm in a PRP. All our lives, even when the wealth came, we've always been a supporter of people. We've never, ever been capitalist as a doctrine. We've always helped. We've employed people across the board. We have had offices across Nigeria. Every state in Nigeria we've had offices. And we give advantage and we help. Scholarships, we've been the largest single entity that gave to education in Nigeria because we know what that does to change lives. I can sit here in front of you because I took my education seriously. And that's why you would listen to me today. Okay. So yes, there's no contradiction whatsoever in my doctrine, in my being in PRP. We've always been a people's person, a people's family, and we've always done what is the best interest for the majority first.
And I'm glad you sort of spent a bit of time talking about the personal things that are driving this decision to jump into politics. But I think I'd actually like to hear from Mr. Zagi, that same question perhaps applied to you. Why are you drawn to a party that is sort of historically people's-oriented? Is there anything in your own life, in your own upbringing,
Absolutely.
that has influenced the decision to be with this party and not the PDP, APC, or any of the sort of myriad of other parties? Because I was reading about you, and it says you started in the PRP from the very bottom and worked your way up. So clearly there was something driving that. What was that?
Okay. Naturally, I should have gravitated to the PDP.
Exactly.
Because I come from a family that my father was a senator in the PDP. Yes, and I should have naturally become a member of the PDP. He was senator in 1999. But everything about me has always been more for the people, support of the people. That's where I enjoy being with the people. And I have never been a member of the PDP for that reason. Yes, he's my father, and I would have supported him in one way or the other in his political career or campaigns, but never been a member of the PDP. And I was drawn to the party because of its ideology, because it's a party for the people, by the people. It's a party where they value human life, every human being, and equality of every human being. So if you are not drawn to that, and you say you want to be an entrepreneur, and you want to go into business, especially service, if you're not ready to think about and be for the people, if you think only about money when you go into business, then you've got it all wrong. Okay. You have to provide a service so that people will be glad to.
I want to do a quick follow-up question. If I just add
to that real quick.
Yes, go on.
On my nomination as the candidate, I went back to the party and said, look, I want a party person. I've gone around and looked for a vice presidential candidate, but I insisted I wanted a party person. I wanted somebody who understands the ideology of the party, understands it over the years and its workings. And that's why
to link that to the part of the question that the gentleman asked there, which is, how can you take a party which is known to be socialist-oriented in nature and then present it to Nigerians as one that will go with policies that are market-driven? And whether there's a contradiction there, or is it an evolution, or what exactly is it?
You could call it an evolution. You could call it new labor, old labor, like they had in England in those days. You can call it that. But you see, whatever the system is, it has to work for the people. Right. That is the thing. It has to be inclusive. And
so this is not about winning elections?
No, it's not about winning elections.
You're not selling the soul of the party so you can...
No. We're doing what is right to make sure the economy works for the collective good. We're doing what is right to make sure there's liquidity in the system to make sure that it works for everybody. We're doing what is right economically and balance that so we can have prosperity across the board. And that is why we take our position. Now, when there's a need for government to step in and make that difference, call it a hybrid if you like, to make that difference, then we will step in to do the appropriate thing to make sure we maintain a collective good.
But to add to it, Kadira, where in the world have you had a socialist movement that was not financed by capitalists?
The Chinese is one. The Chinese is one.
Where?
The Chinese is one.
So the reality is, what you're saying is things have changed.
The Chinese is one.
And you are looking at what works as opposed to just rigid ideology. Is that what
some
I'm
people
hearing?
call it social democracy. Social democrats.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. The Chinese is one, the Russians to some extent.
Okay. I want us to sort of deal with a few more details, particularly around the economy. And then we'll go to some of our remote sites, which hopefully will be ready by then. There are sort of big things that are going on within the Nigerian economy at the moment. Subsidy is one of them. Big debt is one of them. Huge deficits, both in our budget, in trade, in a whole lot of other things. So if we start, for example, with subsidy, this government says it will remove subsidy. You are people-oriented but driven by market. What is your answer to subsidy?
If the government is serious about removing subsidy, they should remove it today. They're kicking it down the kicking bucket down the road.
And if you become president,
waiting for the next government to come.
It becomes your problem.
So that is fact number one. Number two, it's impossible to continue to sustain this because of the corruption and inefficiencies in the subsidy. What we would rather do is to cut out the subsidy and go for a cost of living adjustment, or Kola.
Please explain.
Conveniently, or Kola, a cost of living adjustment, and give that to the required and needed. Because the debt is there anyway. So remove that debt and give it as a cost adjustment, cost of living adjustment to the needy and over 18. And then when you do that, they're free to use that money to do what they choose to, as opposed to a little clique who have just a briefcase and a computer, who churn out invoices for products that were never. The
Cash transfer program.
This is
How
going to be.
is what you're suggesting different? And what would give yours more integrity than what currently exists, which has sort of been very controversial in the way it's been run?
Let me help you with that controversy a little bit.
No,
Let me come in. When we talk about subsidy, who really benefits from that subsidy? Who? Go to the villages, go to the rural areas. How much is fuel? They use calculators to buy it.
I am not arguing for subsidy.
No. I'm not. Let me walk you in. So you mentioned that cash transfer thing. Are you getting it? Government is subsidizing, I think, up to about 290 naira per liter, thereabouts. And that amounts, and they say we consume 66 million 800,000 liters daily.
Subsidy is supposed to be what, 6 trillion or something like that?
It comes out to about 580 something, or 560 or thereabout billion every month. 500 plus billion. 500 plus billion every month, which you give out as subsidies.
Annually, it's about 6 trillion.
Annually, yes. I'm just talking about it monthly. Now, you now have another program called cash transfer, which you give out to 46 billion people, which is another 2 or something plus trillion every year. Now, what we're saying is, do away with subsidy. That money you do away with, you go into something like Kola, and take care of the same number. Because when you subsidize fuel, you actually should be subsidizing for every adult who could have a vehicle, a motorcycle, a keke napep, or a generator in his home. And that's about 109 million people.
And we will come back and talk about this, because what I'm interested in is, so cancelling subsidy does not automatically translate into money in government hands, because we are in debt, and because of all of sort of the gaps that exist. So I want to talk to you about this, but Kano is ready. Bayero University, good evening.
Well, good evening, and welcome to Bayero University, Kano. My name is Stephen Enoch.
Okay.
Good evening, and welcome to Bayero University. Today we have Nura H. Adam and Hadiz Abubakar, who are ready to ask their questions. Let's start with Nura Adam.
Okay, thank you very much, Enoch, for giving me the opportunity to ask my question. Mr. Abiola, you have not ventured into public service. You have always been in business, among which are banking industry, Bank PHB, and Habib Bank, which you chaired into near bankruptcy. So your management skills seem to lack the depth of holding the highest office in the country. So how can you convince Nigerians that you can manage a complex system as Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nura. Now let's move to Hadiza Abubakar, who is ready to ask her question. Hadiza.
Thank you. So, Mr. Abiola, the ideology of the PRP is pro-people, pro-poor. Can you tell us one single project in Nigeria which used to pretend that is pro-people and pro-poor that has impact on the poor people? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bayero University.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bayero. Two simple questions.
Very simple questions. Number one, Bank PHB and Habib Bank. Habib Bank wasn't a failed institution before it got merged into PHB. But that's not somewhat the point. The point is that if you take out and take collectively what I have achieved in Nigeria in the private sector, so there is one little bad egg.
That's a little glitch. Is that what you're saying?
Sorry?
Is that a little glitch?
Look, I've done a lot of good things that I'm not one to blow my own trumpet.
But if there's a time to blow your horn, it is now.
I've done so much that to the point that even if you go to Taraba State, there's a whole local government named after me in Taraba because of what I achieved there. If you go to Edo State, you will see what I've done on oil and gas. We have even one of the first few refineries coming up very soon. Nobody hears about those things. But what you hear about is somebody talking about a big bag, or collectively, a lot of the industries we have in the past. I pray that we never have to, at a very tender age, I think I was 36, 37, have to fight the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because if you had, I have been able to take them on, I have survived it, and I'm still standing today. And that is experience that I wish nobody has to ever go through. When the government fights you, they fight you with everything. The idea is to chop off your kneecaps.
Okay.
But
I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little bit personal because it's related to the question that was asked about track record.
No,
it's important. I'm just piggybacking, and then you go back to the question on the projects for the poor. At some point, you had a very public spat with your younger ones who accused you of all sorts of things around your father's estate because you're the eldest and the head of the family.
Yeah.
There are people who would look at that and say, someone who can't hold family together, particularly when there are small divisions, how does he hold, but even unite Nigeria, which at the moment is heavily fractured? So my question really is, have those rifts been closed? And if they have, are there lessons in that you feel enable you to even bring that to the healing that Nigeria requires?
I think collectively, alhamdulillah, I have gone through quite a bit from a very tender age that only tells me that God has some good things for me to achieve. I lost my father at 36. We're about over 50 of us. We have how many wives? How many mothers? Now tell me in good conscience, how many people of that age could have held it as well as I've held it till date? If I don't give myself the credit, I'm not saying I've done everything right. I'm not said I haven't made one or two mistakes, but to have held it together this long, I think I've done one or two things right. Now, how many of us have been exposed to such at a very early age and are still standing? That is one.
Right.
Number two, my father himself will tell you that you can't all sleep with your heads facing the same direction.
Right.
Even within my immediate siblings, we're united, but we always have a difference, but we settle them. Now,
relate that to Nigeria.
To Nigeria, if you can deal at that age with that many differences. But you know what? God has been kind to me. I lost, unfortunately, my mother first. It's a smaller family. That was a bit of a training. And then my father was basically dead 4 years before he actually passed. So what has happened was, while incarcerated, I could understand and see life for what it was. I could see that there were no friends out there. I could see, even within the family, I could know who is what, who does what, who you avoid, who you don't avoid, and so on and so forth. So I had that tutelage. God provided that for me before it became permanent. And all that experience from a tender age only makes me in a better position to rectify a country that is beginning to split along the seams, religiously, ethnically, and otherwise. But more importantly, what we miss is that there's no division between its future. It's its present and its outgoing that are creating that division. But its future is intact. If my son is in here today, come on, with his friends and their funny hairstyles and their everything, you will never be able to tell, or Haro's son for that matter, they're in here today with their funny hairstyles and their pants almost falling off their hips. You will never be able to tell who is Muslim, Christian, East, West, North, or otherwise. That is the future of Nigeria. They don't have that kind of issues.
Okay, and we have just 2 minutes to go. I know there's a question regarding projects and the poor, which I want you to answer. But I want to use the 2 minutes to actually bring him in,
Please.
right? and particularly interested in talking to him about this same issue because he comes from the state where I was born, which is Kaduna. I love that place, right? But it has been traumatic for quite a while. Sectarian violence, ethnic strife, now compounded with, newer security issues like kidnapping and all of that. And you have a military background, right? So if you take that into account, take your experience from where you come from, that diversity which used to be glorious, beautiful, now, pitted against itself, how do you see the project of, healing fault lines? What would be the sort of underlying principle for doing that for someone like you, given the military background, given where you come from?
Okay. Firstly, I'll say I come from a village called Kwai, from Java local government in Kaduna State. I think I can put it on record that we have not had those issues in my community. Why? Because I think the leaders in those communities do the right thing. Up till tomorrow, you come into that community, the paramount, the ruler in that place must know who you are, where you're coming from, what brought you there. Those are issues that must be done everywhere in Kaduna. You need to know who comes into your community, what he's coming for, and then you settle him. And then for most of them, either Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, they come in. Actually, they take on one of the clans in the community and say, this is my clan. They go for meetings there. So that is, we integrate them. And for that reason, I know stories of people who were traveling and they were stopped by a mob, even by the herdsmen or the kidnappers. And they said, where are you from? When the person mentioned he's from Kwai, they said, oh, you people are good people. So we must be accommodating to one another. We must accommodate each other. Very important if we want to change this thing. And we must have leaders who are sincere. The leader, when you become a leader, you govern people, you govern everyone. You don't govern a certain sect or certain religion. You govern all. And I think it's not the issue of military background. It's not military might that will take us out of this. It's intelligence. How do you get intelligence? You get intelligence with people who are comfortable to give you intelligence report. You get intelligence from people. People are scared. There's institutional fear of the police. Today, police is supposed to be your friend, but people are scared of giving information to the police. Because the police is going to give the information to the person you are giving information on him. So you see, those are things that those are issues that we need to talk about. It's not by military might.
Okay.
No.
I'm going to stop you there. Yes, just quickly then. Because I
Look, I've said it before. Like you said, it's not by military might. Kaduna and the state should be the safest state in Nigeria. It has everything. Everything from the military to the Air Force to the police academy, work college, judge, everything is in that place. Why is it the most volatile? It's a lack of confidence in the system. Nobody trusts the governance, the leadership. And that's what he says. You have to build trust in people, and that applies to everywhere in Nigeria.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll carry on with this conversation and also hopefully link up with our remote stations. Don't go away.
Daria Media, in association with Cabal Entertainment, presents The Candidates, a presidential town hall meeting series where the presidential candidates of the 6 leading political parties tell us about their plans for the country. Join Kadaria Ahmed as she leads us into the world of these candidates from the 17th to the 23rd of November 2022. This very important program will be streamed on FRCN, Radio Now, DSTV, NTA, Facebook, YouTube, and more. This is a town hall meeting you shouldn't miss. Tune in. Let's hear from the candidates.
Choosing where to study is one of the biggest decisions you will make in life. So, it is important to get it right. At Coal City University, Enugu, Nigeria, We pride ourselves on providing students a stable academic calendar and education of international standards. Coal City University gives students incredible personal attention and support. You can enroll in our regular programs and obtain a degree exclusively awarded by Coal City University. Alternatively, you can enroll in our international pathway programs, which will enable you earn 2 degrees in 4 years from Coal City University and Delaware State University, United States. Visit www.ccu.edu.ng. Coal City University, education for self-actualization.
Welcome back. You are watching The Candidates, a Daria Media Town Hall series brought to you with the support of the MacArthur Foundation, the Nigeria Television Authority, the FRCN, Radio Now, Emmanuel Chapel, Zikoko Citizen, Silverbird TV, Trust TV, Injenje Media, News Central Television, Plus TV, Kaftan TV, YouTube, and Out There Media, and Amede. Now, there was one question from the audience that you had not answered, which was around whether you can talk about any of the projects that are designed for the poor currently in Nigeria. If you answer that, then we can, go to our remote locations and back to the audience as well.
Where do I start from? I annually pay WAEC exams on a state and federal level.
Okay.
This is not my best.
So you have like a foundation or something?
I just don't know how to blow my own. God. But I think what is more important, though, is what value do I create in the communities in which I work. I've said one in Taraba, to the point that I have a local government named after me. Kola is in Taraba. I don't speak Fulani, but it means Kola's house. If you go to Egboko today, you will see what I've done there. If you go to Lafiagi, you'll see what I've done in the past. But you see, my achievements, like any other thing, or many of my life is very personal. It's like taking pictures. I hate taking pictures, but I have to take pictures now.
So let's see if we can use that to sort of expand the question to sort of be relevant to the job that you want to do, which is that of president.
I have been around. I have touched lives. I've made difference in the lives of people.
But you and I know that individuals do try, and it makes a difference to individual lives. But it takes institutions to lift society in the sort of numbers that are required for fundamental change. And really, what would be useful is to hear if, from what you've done on a private level, there are things you're thinking about and how you can scale them up and institutionalize them or make them part of governance in a way that would be significant.
Women. I have empowered a lot of women over the years. I start from my own private businesses. I take the drivers, especially their wives, ask them what they do. We empower them by selling pure water, oranges, buy them a refrigerator. Now, what we found out is that for the driver himself, by the second week, his salary is gone. But for his wife, there's always something coming in every day. And that's what actually puts food on the table. I have gone in Egboko, for example, provided cooperatives with enough money to have the women actually take their produce to market. What used to happen before was that the buyers would come from Benin and Asaba and all those places, buy on market day and go. And I told them, I took one of my staff to take them to the market and say how much they're selling the same things they're buying from you here. So what we've now done is to provide a vehicle, the money, which they bought pickup trucks, and they actually take produce to market themselves, and they're making a killing.
I think I want us to dive a little bit further into the gender conversation and how your government intends to maybe mainstream women participation, not just in politics, but in all facets of life. But let us join the University of Ibadan now, who are ready for us. Hello, Ibadan.
Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening, Kadria. We're definitely live and listening to you right here from the University of Ibadan, Oyo State. I am Nero Desoy, and we have two students who would like to ask questions of the candidate of the People's Redemption Party, Mr. Kola Abiola, and his vice presidential candidate. First up is Remy. Remy is right here as well. Remy, go ahead.
Good evening. And the first question is, last week, the National Bureau of Statistics claimed that the percentage of population living in poverty had increased to over 60%. What policy action or plan would you embark on within the next 100 days if to tackle poverty headlong, and that would diminish the figures in record time? Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and aside from Remy, we also have Theodore, who also has a very interesting question as well.
Good evening, sir. So my question is relating to the economic brain drain that is happening in the country. What feasible plan would you put in place to reduce the amount of Nigeria's workforce leaving the country, because it's having more devastating effect on us currently? So what are you going to put in place to mitigate against the brain drain that is currently happening? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Ibadan. I think I'll take two more from the hall to match them so that we have four and we can have a substantive conversation. Right. The lady in green, yes, thank you.
Yeah, you take the first.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Iriti Bakari Yusuf. Right, my first question, of course, we're in World Cup season. And of course, your father was very, very popular in football. What I'd like to know is, do you intend to invest in grassroots sports, in particular talent scouting, employment with relation to administration, management, and to make sure that we get to the World Cup in 4 years' time? That's my first question. My other question, although somebody in Ibadan mentioned it, but it's slightly different. Given what we have with the population explosion in Nigeria, do you have any plans for population control? If so, what do you suggest? Because surely 216 million is far too much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else, or do we come back to the candidates? Okay, for now, we'll come back to you. So that's like 4 questions.
Yes.
Urgent solution to poverty.
Poverty. Security, first and foremost. Economics and security go hand in hand. Unfortunately, I'm sure if you look at those numbers, it's been impacted by the security situation in Nigeria to date. If you look, how do people go to farm? How do people go to market when they get kidnapped and they're held? How do you get peasants to pay ransoms or what they call protection fees? This is the biggest one problem we have. So they go hand in hand. The day you have good leadership, the day you solve your security, you will definitely be solving a lot of your poverty problems at the rural level. Because if I remember those same figures, it says 70% is in the rural, in our rural. And it shouldn't be the case, because in the rural, you don't need money to buy food. You grow something every season. And thank God Nigeria is a place that there's something every season. So if it's yams that's a season, you eat it in the morning at boiled, you eat it fried in the afternoon, or you pound it in the evening. You will eat yam 3 times a day. Now, but because of the insecurity situation, coupled with your flood situation presently, the rural poor is going through a very, very bad situation. Now, the lack of infrastructure also hasn't helped. The setup cost in Nigeria is so high. Population in itself is not a problem. It's a sustainable growth that you need to make it work for a country. So,
and I think people kind of understand the problems. And really what they're looking to you and Mr. Zego is to tell them how you intend to deal with these issues.
That's what I'm getting to now. Once we solve the security situation, there's going to be a massive improvement in the poor, on the rural side. That's one. Two, things like our cost of living adjustment, like I spoke about earlier on. Instead of giving the subsidy to the few, if you give that to the needed, it'll make a hell of a difference at that level. That is another way of dealing with that. But also, more importantly, we need to look, and like we say in PRP, every local government has an industry.
Every
local government must have an industry. Because there must be something that you specialize in or you grow the most. We need to encourage that. We need to encourage a lot of such, not just growing the raw material, but to process the raw material and value.
You have a lot of questions to answer, and the time is going very quickly. So if you could just sort of wrap up on this by talking about, because the person in Ibadan was concerned about, say, like quick solutions within your 100 days. So, things like industry, they take time.
We're going to look at agri. We're going to, as well in the rural, it's agri. We're going to look at our river basin authorities that have gone dead, wake them up so we can irrigate and plant year-round. We're going to have extension services. We're going to have all that. But like I said, it all starts with security. If the security is not there, nobody will go to
What will you do about insecurity that is different from what is being done now?
Oh, there's a lot we can do.
Let me add a little bit to that question, the first question. Because a lot of times people will say agriculture, yes, but agriculture takes time. I think one of the first things you do is infrastructure. Which is what we will go into, infrastructure. Because infrastructure has a tendency of employing a lot of mostly unskilled, even up to unskilled labor. That's one of the things we'll focus on, which is part of what government does. When an economy is in their streets, like this is what they do. A lot of infrastructural projects and infrastructure, roads, housing, and the rest of that, so that you can boost the economy. That's what we'll do. So maybe you can take on the security issue.
Yeah, maybe we move to the question on the brain drain, because there's
on brain drain. I was talking to somebody. We were talking yesterday. I can't remember when. I think yesterday. Somebody said brain drain. Well, it's if you find yourself in this situation, you better have the brain drain. Because that's where you have vibrant minds here who have gone to school, studied, and they don't have anything to do. Better move. For now, until we get the system right. And until we get the system right so that we can accommodate them. Because right now,
How long will it take to get the system right under you two?
We'll hit the ground running.
Not just that. You see, there's some very low-hanging fruits.
Right.
For example, a lot of outsourcing jobs. It just, all you need to do is create internet-enabling environment. You can be in Nigeria, and they do it. A lot of youth do that today. They earn a foreign exchange from home. They do a lot of outsourcing activity. So it's that quick. You can set up the appropriate infrastructure.
33% unemployment rate, roughly.
There are a lot.
So many people also without skills. Because our education system seems to have sort of failed in terms of sort of just creating people and giving them what they need in order to actually earn a living. How would you deal with those problems?
That's what he said about the infrastructure.
Okay, let's go there. You touched on another topic, unskilled labor.
Yes.
Now, I think the government has a program called Accelerated Basic Education Program, whereby it's a accelerated system where you bring people who are out in the system that didn't go to school. You bring them back to an accelerated program. After that, you get to vocational training, and from there, what we're saying is that's a quick fix. It's a good policy, That should be but what we will add to it is that you should be trained in your local languages because it's a faster way.
Trained to do what? Do you have an idea of which sectors you are looking at?
Numeracy and literacy first.
Okay.
I get it.
Foundational.
Then vocational skills. Vocational skills.
There are 200 and something languages in Nigeria.
No.
So when you say in your local languages,
three basic languages. They have 3 basic languages.
I'm surprised you say that.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of minority tribes that are large minorities that will be listening to you and wondering, why do the Hausas, the Yorubas, and the Igbos have to keep dominating us? Why do I have to learn in Hausa if I'm sitting in Plateau and my main language is Birom? Why do I have to learn in Yoruba?
Why do we allow certain things divide us?
No, so I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. I need you to respond to how you would deal with those kind of agitations.
Of course, you reduce it. Even to teach people in Hausa, you have to get people trained to do that.
Right.
To teach people in Yoruba, you have to get people trained to do that. So we're saying the lowest hanging fruits. Those are the ones that you will start with. Then you will go to Nupe, you will go to Tiv, you will go to Kanuri, you will go to all those ones. But you will start somewhere.
Okay.
And
I've just been told actually our languages are 500 and not Tibetan.
Yeah, they are.
But you need to, like you said, you need to look at the immediate
Is it easier to train somebody in English than it is to train him in a language he already speaks?
Absolutely, I think so. At least that's what the experts say.
It's
easier to do in the local language than it is to do in English.
So that's what we're saying. And then you see the next stage of it, is after you train him on vocational skills.
Okay.
Then one of the biggest problems is that you don't catch them into any database.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that. A lot of we like so much like certificates, and we have the NDE.
Okay.
We have the NDE.
There's still a question on grassroots sports, and control. But I want to quickly go to Enugu because they're ready. Let's hear from the people in Enugu. Hello, Enugu.
Good evening from Kola University, Enugu, Nigeria. I am a former Ajumobi. We've got 2 students here, and they have questions for Agort, Chimerem, and Ben. On standby to ask their questions. Chimerem.
Good evening. My name is Chimeremuma Ojenta from the Department of Computer Science in Kola University. If elected, you will be inheriting the negative effects and impacts of flood. How would you deal with the current flood crisis in various parts of Nigeria? Thank you.
We have Benita on standby. Benita, let's hear from you.
Good evening. My name is Benita Ugu from Department of International Relations, Kola University, Enugu. Mr. Abiola, what reforms will you implement to diversify the Nigerian economy and limit our over-dependency on crude oil, sir? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kola University, Enugu, Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Enugu. I understand that the University of Maiduguri is also ready.
Good evening, Nigeria. Yes, good evening, Kadria. Good evening, Nigeria. This is Musa Osman from the University of Maiduguri campus here. We also have 2 students with questions for the presidential candidate and his running mate. First, we have Umar. Umar, your question, please.
My name is Awang Umar Garams from the Department of Mass Communication, University of Maiduguri. Most of the small and medium-scale enterprises in Nigeria are shutting down due to epileptic power supply. So as the presidential candidate, I would like to know your plans for the Nigerian power sector. Thank you.
Our next question is from Chigozie. Chigozie, your question, please.
Good evening. My name is Vincent Chigozie from the Department of Political Science. And my question goes like this. The global world is fastly advancing. And in tech, the global world is fastly advancing on tech. And tech becoming the goal for today. what plans do you have for Nigerians on tech-related issues? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Enugu and Maiduguri. Okay, quite a number of questions there. And if we could start by rounding up with the questions that were asked in the hall, and then we move to the ones with the university. So the question of grassroots support, sports and the legacy of your father.
Right. Not too long ago, there was something called Youth Fund. Youth Fund, I forget exactly what it was. It was a youth development tournament where we go, mainly football, but we go and recruit from the very lowest levels and get players all the way to Manchester United if we can.
Is it run? This is run by you?
Youth Fund.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm embarrassed towards Man United. So we did that, sponsored that for many years, where we go into the rural areas, we set up competitions between state clubs, and then we had a national event, and we had the best of talents go further from there. We have to go back to that, but we have to expand that beyond football. We have boxing. We're looking at something sort of like a league. It'll start as a regional league for any sport now, where the clubs, the players are, and then we'll have an investor come in as shareholders. So the revenues from that, you hold it tournaments amongst the different clubs in the regions. The revenues from that will go into the clubs and go into the players to give them a living wage, and then hopefully you see, not too long ago, if you come today and say you wanted to play football for a living, no, that was years back. They will look at you and give you the beating of your life. Your parents, they will tell you, look away, go and study. But you see, what has happened over the years now is that it's the so-called elite people that are sending their kids to football academies now to help them train to have careers in football and sports. So what has been a grassroots thing has become an elite thing now. We need to go back and turn that table. And what we want to do is to set up that league regionally, replicate it in the 6 regions, and then from the 6 regions, the best teams now come and set. But
did you have a general sort of philosophy and policy around the use of sports and maybe the creative sector and all of
Absolutely,
that
yes.
For young people? I'm not sure I saw anything like that in your manifesto.
Yeah, the manifesto is a doctrine that will follow, but under that you have your ABCs in the implementation of that. And this is part of what I'm telling you now. Youth development, sports, Nollywood, Kannywood, the creative entertainment industry. It's a very, very huge industry, and even at foreign exchange and in Nigeria. What we need to do is to find a way to bring and manifest that income at home. What we need to do is to have a body that comes together to chart and document and make sure that the royalties are paid to the entertainers. Okay, that is something we're looking at and we're putting in place. Yeah. We also want to create avenues where you can actually earn a decent living while doing it. It's not just out of love or out of talent anymore. Okay. We also want to get and develop sports academies. We have a lot of our stadiums nationwide that are rotting away for lack of use.
I don't mean to rush you, but I'm almost going to force you to do rapid fire answers to some of these questions because we're fast running out of time. I know 2 hours sometimes seems like a lot until you start talking. Chinere from Enugu had a question around flooding. Flooding. Also from Enugu, we had a question around how you're going to diversify away from crude. I don't know who wants to sort of take
I
those
said
two.
something before in the past. Since 1984, when I got back, working at Abiola farms, there's always been floods. Every year, once they let Kenji and Shiroro dams loose, you get floods downstream. And every year, you get your meteorological society give a warning, but nothing is ever done. Your National Environmental Disaster Agency is fully funded, but they're never there. Now, part of the problem is the preparedness and the lack of it. But more importantly, our inland waterways are meant to be infrastructures that we should exploit. Those rivers have to be dredged.
Nigeria does have an inland revenue service.
Agency. We have an inland waterway board,
yes,
but they're not dredging anything.
Right.
So the silt levels are so high that you will continue to have monstrous problems as the years go by. Now, if we drain those things and dredge them, they become useful economic tools for us. It becomes part of our infrastructure plan and network to move goods and services around Nigeria. It'll be a cheaper option. It'll take the heavy beating off our roads also. So we need to look at it in a total ecosystem. We don't just solve one.
How does climate change play into this from your point of view?
Well, there's definitely a bit of that, but in our own case, it's man-made. Mm-hmm. It's just a disaster waiting to happen, and it's going to get worse because we have never taken the steps we should take. Because of the poverty level, we have a lot of us cooking with firewoods and so on and so forth. Deforestation and all that doesn't help, I accept. But also, we can mitigate a lot of that by making sure that government does what it should do and making sure that our waterways are desilted and we use them appropriately.
On the question of diversification, I thought maybe you could take that, given that you've sort of run various businesses and you're not sort of working in oil and gas, as I understand it.
Pardon?
Diversification.
Yeah.
So there was a question asked about how you intend to ensure that we are not continuing to be dependent on oil. And I said, given your background in sort of multiple industries, because I understand you've worked across different businesses, I thought maybe you're best positioned to answer that question.
Okay. Diversification. Obviously...
I mean, are you bothered, first of all, by the fact that 50% of all, government revenue is from oil, 90% of foreign exchange from oil?
Yeah, one is bothered because if something happens in that sector, that means we go broke. So obviously we need to diversify our economy, and that's why a lot of times we're talking of agriculture and we're talking about, when you come to agriculture, it's not about just agriculture and just going to farm and take out the produce and sell. You need to process it. You must add value to it. It's in that value addition that you get the returns you ought to have. So in everything we do, we have the mining industry. What are we doing? All of that, we take the goods, we export virtually raw. And it goes, you don't add value.
So how will you make sure that doesn't happen anymore?
Pardon?
How will you make sure that doesn't happen anymore? That we start to add value to our commodities, excuse me.
A lot of times it's not by fear, it is by educating the artisanal miner, by educating the farmers, by letting the farmer know that, one, for instance, if you have worked at that level, you know that some of the farmers, when they take their goods to the market, they put, because they buy a lot of times now, goods, farm produce are bought by weight. So they put a lot of...
But value add surely is more than about knowledge. If you don't, if farmers might know, I mean, a lot of farmers know.
Let me explain something to you, please.
If you haven't built the infrastructure, if you haven't given them the capital...
You start from little things.
Right.
The cost of, okay, I come from a ginger producing area. There are different grades of ginger based on how you harvested, you split, and you dried it. And what's the content of impurity in it. If you make sure you get the grade 1, grade A, the cost is higher than grade B or grade C. Same ginger. The same thing with any other crop. If you make sure you practice good agricultural practices, in everything you do. You get the quality. So you start, I can't tell someone in the ginger and say, oh, go and start processing it till you get the ginger powder. No. Or you say, get all your
But can you afford to say for 1 year you're going to just be teaching and
No, it's practical. He talked about extension services.
Is that practicality? Because I'm listening to you, and let me tell you where the frustration is. So sometimes when I do these things, people say to me, you keep interrupting people. I'm interrupting people because I am not able to hold to... Nigeria right now is full of problems. I remember the young man who asked the question from one of the campuses. He put the caveat of in your first 100 days. Yes. So people are also looking for people who, when they come in, will be able to do things that are immediate, that bring immediate relief. And yet when I listen to you, it's almost as if you think you have all the time in the world. First you teach them about grades, then you provide the infrastructure, before then we begin to export. It's almost like, or am I misunderstanding you?
Can I just say one or two things?
Yes.
Just in addition to what he said. It's all about import substitution.
Okay.
Okay? There's a lot that goes out today, especially on the produce and agri side, that is not accountable in our books. We need to create a window that has sort of like an SGF, where we grade and make sure it's documented and the revenues come back into the system. But right now, anybody just wakes up and goes, puts stuff in a container, says it out. It's not graded, it's not nothing. It gets there, even if it's a grade A, it gets there and the buyer now tells you, no, it's rubbish, and pays you peanuts. But even that peanuts doesn't get repatriated in the system. So what we need to do with Export Promotion Council and all these little things put together is to have a proper testing verification process for a lot of our produce,
to quality
a lot of our
control.
goods. Sorry?
Quality control.
Quality control, yeah. And put those things, and once you come through that process, at least we can document it.
Right.
And then when it goes out, we can trace the value, the transaction, and make sure that those funds come back into our coffers and we account for them. That is one big thing that needs to be done. Secondly, a lot of dead industry has to come alive. We have textile industry, we have cotton that we don't process. We have hide that has gone to comatose. We have all this that we can at least begin to wake up as soon as we get there. And like I said, it's all about making sure that you take from the different regions what is available and what can be value added and put to work very quickly. We need to get all these agencies because a lot of them have the facilities there. It's sort of like you spoke about the creative industry, the CBN fund with the banks that give 9% interest. Okay. It's not available or readily open to people. So what we need to do is to make sure that those things are actually put to work.
Right. So let's quickly move to power,
Yes.
which, as you both know, is also a critical component of a fully functional society, both from the economic point of view, but also from the sort of social side, yes, and environmental and all of that. How will you deal with Nigeria's perennial power issues?
You see, for us, we still believe in using what we have. We have the oil. Let us make sure we get the value from the oil. Let us make sure we get that value, extract that value ethically with the best environmental practices.
So are you talking oil or gas?
Oil, because it comes with the gas.
Right, okay.
Now, what we now do subsequently is to now tell ourselves, how do we best utilize that?
Right.
You see, you have what, 6,000 odd products from a barrel of oil. Those are value-added products, petrochemicals, plastics, and those things, if they are done locally, will bring down the cost of business drastically. So we can't forget that.
Your energy power policy is still largely dependent on crude. Is that what I'm hearing?
No. It's a mixed bag.
Okay.
It's a mixed bag. We will look at the regionally what is available in each region. If it's hydro you have the most, we would use hydro. If it's gas you have, we will use gas powered. But more importantly, we will have we have one grid system right now where that transmission line must stay for national security reasons as a public.
So you will maintain transmission lines, but we haven't.
But we will now regionalize the lines based on the 6 regions we have.
Right.
And then we will take power
We haven't
sources.
done well with a centralized control of transmission lines.
It's a national security issue. There's nothing, it will work provided you make it work. It's all about accountability. If you don't hold people accountable, these things will not work. Let's do what is right and then you'll see.
Will you do anything at all to either tweak, improve, cancel, or start again afresh the privatization of the sort of power assets that has happened? So both generation and distribution have been privatized, but the companies, as you know, are struggling. MBET, which is the sort of bulk power purchaser that is supposed to have, been like a bridge agency, is still alive and well, but apparently broke and not able to pay generators for the power that they are giving to distributors. It's a whole mess.
That's because the thing never worked right from day one. All the steps that were supposed to come in. Look, national power is a collective responsibility, even in the law. It's a responsibility of the federal government, the states, and the local government. That's the law. So we have to design things around that. That's why we're going back to the regional setup. That's the law. But also, more importantly, generating is one thing. Distribution is more the customer-facing bit of it. Transmission is one, generate, but the more the customer-facing side of it is the distribution. That is where the problem is most of the time. But you have to have a mixed.
You realize we're only generating about 12,000 megawatts.
Yeah, but even if you generate what you can't even transmit what you generate.
You can't wheel it.
You can't wheel it.
Okay.
You can only wheel about 6,000.
University of Abuja is ready. We will come back to this. Let us speak to Abuja first. Hello, University of Abuja.
Hello, good evening, Kaderia. Thank you for joining us here at the University of Abuja. I'm Ruth Aguele. The students are already set with their questions, so we go with just 2. And I'm starting with Shuaib.
My name is Aliu Shuaib Omeza from the Department of Accounting, University of Abuja. My question goes to Mr. Presidential Candidate. Based on your experience in the private sector, how can you ensure the government partners with the private firms in ensuring that more jobs are created and the revenue are intensified? Thank you.
Creation of job. Okay. Antonia is the next.
Good evening. I am Antonia Abba from the Department of Public Administration, University of Abuja. My question is, what is your opinion on increased autonomy to state governments and regions, and how do you think it affects the question of community policing? The second one is, anybody elected as president will be faced with a deficit budget in the first year of his administration. How do you intend to fund this deficit budget if you get elected? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And because we have very little time, if Bielsa is ready, we should take Bielsa on. Can we go to Bielsa, please, so that we conclude?
Thank you very much, Kaderia. Good evening and welcome to Bielsa Center. My name is Victor Binawari. We have 2 people that will be asking questions this evening. The first is Theophilus. So over to you, Theophilus.
All right, good evening. My question for you, sir, is how do you deliver justice and equity to all Nigerians as regards to those in offices that have misused our public funds?
Okay, quickly we'll go to the next person, and the next person is Dinipri.
Dressman Dinipri is my name. To the candidate. My question is on the development of the Niger Delta area. Knowing that the development is not commensurate with the wealth that is going out of the Niger Delta area. Eventually, when you become the president, what holistic steps will you take to develop the Niger Delta area that is producing the oil that is servicing this country? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the questions from Bayelsa Center. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abuja and Bayelsa. Okay, there was a question we carried over. Remember the concept of carryover, which was on tech, and how you intend to, as a team, help us develop our tech industry, which is essentially what the world is all doing. Maybe if we start from there before we go to these new questions.
Okay, I think I kind of touched on that earlier when I said you need to create an environment. You see, a lot of the jackpots we have are tech-related in most cases. And unfortunately, even now tech abroad is laying off massively. We saw that with Twitter, we've seen that with Facebook, we've seen that with Amazon lately, and it's going to continue. It's a trend. What we need to do is to create an environment for them to stay, but still have an opportunity to earn offshore. And there's a lot of outsourcing going on, there's a lot of coding going on, there are a lot of things like that that are actually being done in Nigeria by Nigerian youth today without even stepping out.
Okay.
So let us create that.
Yeah, and I'm hearing what you're saying. So they are in Nigeria, spending here, family here, everything here, but they are earning abroad.
Absolutely, yes.
And what is the impact of that, though, on our own? Because it seems to then suggest we are not developing a tech ecosystem that is capable of also employing people in tech.
Now, one thing we're going to also do as a government, and I must commend the present administration for the new startup bill. We're going to take that startup bill. We had plans of doing something similar, but we're going to take it one step, 2 steps further. We're going to create out of the Sovereign Wealth Fund a tech fund that is open, will serve as a venture capital fund for anything tech in the diaspora. When I said the diaspora, as long as you're of African descent anywhere in the world, you can tap into that fund, provided you come home to Nigeria to set up. So we will fund, we would invest, we would attract, use that to extract the
Sounds to me like you're saying government is going to get involved in stuff
we must create the foundation
that private sector can do better.
No. It's technology that goes private. The funding comes first from military or from government-funded programs that now go commercial. Okay. You don't see the industry itself go out there and put out the research money first.
Okay, and the final conversation we'll have is about how you're going to fund all this, but I don't want to interrupt you until you've gone through all the questions.
I just said it's going to come from your sovereign wealth fund.
No, hang on, I know. Yeah. I want to delve into that a bit further, but I don't want to divert you from the multiple questions you have to answer. Okay. Because there was one about partnership with the private sector and how you're going to encourage that. So you can sort of marry
Now,
that.
we spoke earlier about a market dividend to create liquidity. So the PPP format for infrastructural development, for example, it has to be very transparent, but also we're creating liquidity so they can source funding from the market. Now, as to whether the government comes in at some point and subsidize the interest rates, it's another thing entirely, depending on the project we're looking at. So that's another avenue we're looking at coming together. We also have areas where you can get tax breaks. What we will not do is substitute government responsibility and concede that to private.
Yeah, what I'm not clear about is where that demarcation is, what you're leaving for government and what you're leaving for private sector. And I think what we will do is if we let you, as part of your wrap-up, to sort of clarify that. Because I think the people who've asked these questions deserve to get answers. So I don't want to divert away from that. There was a question on the increased independence of regions and states and whether you would consider state policing.
Right. In PRP, on our manifesto for the last 50 years is true federalism. We're a big champion of that. But you see, we play politics with it a lot. Some call it genuine federalism, some call it restructuring. But for us, one thing we will guarantee Nigerians is that we win 2023 as long as it's within the Constitution as it is today. We will go as far as we can on that. One example is devolution of powers to your local governments. These are things that I think the present administration is trying to put sign executive order for financial autonomy. And not every single governor that talks about restructuring has opposed it. Even Lagos State, the National Assembly in Lagos State voted against it. So,
how will you make it happen then?
Now, very good. Every state in which PRP wins will implement it from day one.
Some of those things, before they go to, okay, so there are things you can sort of do at the state level,
right?
But there are some things that before you domesticate, you have to get them passed at the National Assembly.
Within the Constitution, there's so many things you cannot do on restructuring or true federalism because you're limited by the Constitution.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying, because when people talk about true federalism, there are sort of things that are within the concurrent and the things that are within the exclusive lists that people sometimes point to. And let me give you an example of what's happening now in the National Assembly. We've had an attempt to make adjustments to the Constitution. Some of those things have been passed at the center, and they're failing at the state level because people can't agree. But there are things that even at the center, people are not agreeing on. So I'm trying to find out what your plan is for getting consensus around some of these things, because by your own admission, there are places where, once you get there and the conversation starts, it all scatters.
It's in the Constitution. There's some things you can do today as far as our Constitution is right now.
So you start with those?
We start with that first.
Give me an example.
Devolution of powers to your local governments.
Right.
Instantly is there. Any PRP state would implement it from day one.
You realize you won't be a governor.
It's part of our manifesto.
And so you're confident your governors won't go there, enjoy
it's part
the
of
power.
The manifesto. It's a manifesto they've agreed to work with. It's there. It's always been there. And we will actually practice it.
Manifestos that they have jettisoned in the past.
No.
Okay. So this is your word to Nigeria.
This is our word to Nigeria. Whatever can be done nationally, whatever can be done at the state level, based on the Constitution to date, we will. Then I think, what's that?
Zego, there was
those conferences they had.
Yeah, Zego, because of time, I want to bring Zego.
During Jonathan and the other one. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just bring Mr. Zego in very quickly because, clock, time. There was a question regarding justice and equity and the misuse of public funds and how you intend to ensure that people are held accountable.
Well, Nigeria is a country of laws.
Exactly.
The law clearly says what
people
should
don't
be done.
Follow the law.
Oh,
that's
no,
part of
people
our
don't
biggest
follow
problem.
the law because the leadership allows it.
Exactly.
What we're saying is that we'll allow the law take its course, and if it says we throw the book at you, we throw the book at you.
Exactly.
That's all. There's no other interpretation. The law is clear.
But some of the problems are actually
and then you have
with
to
law
remember. You
enforcement
have to remember.
And the agencies charged with
you
law
have to remember.
enforcement.
You have to remember. You have to remember that we come in fresh. We come in without any baggage, so we have not been part of that system. So it's easy to throw the book at a person. But if you come in with a baggage, obviously you cannot throw the book because you could be throwing the book at yourself.
Look, exactly where I was going. We're never been in the center. We don't come with the legacy issues. We don't come with the baggage. We are there to go there to objectively look at how best to make things work for Nigerians. Sorry.
The reason I'm giving you that.
Sorry, the rule of law
Yes.
is there. The independence of the judiciary is there, and we will enforce that. Even if you give us the opportunity to, we will not just jail. We will make sure that you will do at least a minimum of your jail time before you even have a reprise.
I promise I'm not.
So
I'm not doubting your intentions. It's just that historically, we have sat, we have heard, people say we as individuals are above board, and therefore when we come, we will lead by example, and everybody will line up and do the right thing, and that is the way we are going to enforce the rule of law. It has not worked.
We are the future.
Well, one of the things we say is that we should be held accountable.
Even ourselves, our loyalties to Nigeria.
And then in all we're saying...
Will you give up your immunity? Because it's very difficult to hold president and vice president.
No, two different things here.
Yeah?
You do not, you see, this, it's like state governors having immunity. Really, I don't have issues with that because the system is not mature enough.
But then how are we going to hold you accountable if we can't prosecute you when you fail to do the things that you say you will do?
We can prosecute. The law says I can say you are guilty. I can go and make a case to your House of Assembly. And if I make a case to your House of Assembly, it's up to them to do what is right. But if they don't do what is right, you better don't plan to leave office at some day. Because we have a case waiting for you. We would go through the law. We won't go by fiat to remove governors and then have them go to court and use that same court to come back. That we will not do. We will go to court. We can come to present to you.
There's a question from Bielsa that I really want to take, which is about how you will protect the Niger Delta, ensure equity. They spent, quite a considerable amount of time, decades, providing the major wealth of this country. They're facing degradation, environmental, all sorts of things. So how do you ensure equity? And I think this is an important question because just today, we saw the president, for example, at a ceremony to begin the exploration of oil in Bauchi State. Right. So the oil-producing areas are set to expand. The ones we've had before, we have not treated judicially. We've poisoned their water, poisoned their farmlands, and done all sorts of things. How are you going to get justice for them? And how do you ensure that the new ones coming on board, on stream, do not face the same problems?
Look, it all goes to leadership at the end of the day. Look, there is no excuse for Bielsa to be one of the poorest states in this country. We were just discussing that today. Bielsa is on the list, after Sokoto is Bielsa, on that index. Does that make any sense? Is that the leadership that comes from the center or the leadership that they elected as officers in their own states? When you have a governor build a bridge across to his golf course
the issue
at
is
the expense of
they know all this and they are saying, what are you going to do about it?
I'm just telling you, it begins with leadership. Your problem starts from the house. You want to buy fish, you start from smelling the head. Even domestically, the leadership they've elected in Bielsa for the last, how many years have they been around? What have they done? And Bielsa should be a utopia. Consider the population and the amount of monies they get on a monthly basis in government observation.
Unfortunately,
it's the leadership.
Yes, we've run out of time as well.
Oh, God.
And so, despite my best efforts to try and extend this, it will not be possible. So I'm going to give you guys all 30 seconds for you and a minute for you to just wrap up and tell the electorate maybe your unique selling point and why you really, really think come February they should make you president and vice president.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to establish leadership from the front. We'll lead from the front. And we will make sure that we move this country from being the poverty capital of the world to a very progressive and prosperous nation, a center of excellence. And we're going to do that by through smart investments in the economy, in the areas of infrastructure, creatives, agriculture, and the likes, and also human development. So those are what we bring to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Zego.
Well, we're the party of the future. We're here to bridge the gap between the past and the future. We're here to mentor the future leadership politically, governance, and leadership in Nigeria. But more importantly, a vote for PRP is a vote for 711 candidates nationwide. So we're bringing in a fresh, new set of people. We have the youngest set of governors running in this country and legislators. So
thank you very much, Mr. Abiola and Mr. Zego, for joining us for this 5th edition of The Candidate. And that's it for the candidates for today. We want to thank the MacArthur Foundation, NTA, FRCN, Radio Now, Emmanuel Chapel, Zikoko Citizen, Silverbird Television, Trust TV, Injeje Media, New Central TV, Plus TV, Kaftan TV, YouTube, Out There Media, and Amede. Join us tomorrow for a finale that promises to be amazing. Okay? Have a wonderful evening and see you tomorrow. Thank you so much, guys.